Hey everyone, welcome back. I'm Michael and we're going to be getting right back into some more Reddit stories. If you enjoy the video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Now, without further ado, let's begin. This story was created in the relationship advice subreddit by a user named StupidWife2018. The post is titled, "I married and slept with another man and regretted it immediately. Husband found out. I am not sure if he wants to leave me or not, but I am willing to do anything to fix it. Need advice. I need some advice on how to keep my family together. I have made some mistakes and the affair is going to break my family, if it hasn't already. TLDR, married, slept with another man and regretted it immediately. Husband found out. I'm not sure if he wants to leave me or not, but I am willing to do anything to fix it. Need advice. My husband and I have been married for 12 years, together for almost 16. We are both 34 years old. We have 2 beautiful children, a 10-year-old son and a 9-year-old daughter. My husband is a wonderful man, a very good provider, although we both work, and a wonderful father. My parents love my husband more than they love my brother or myself for that matter. All my female friends gush over how lucky I am to have locked him down. Yet, with all the above, I had an affair. I met this other man at work. He works in the same building as me, but in a different office and on a different floor. He was taller than my husband, spends more time in the gym than my husband, he has no family of his own, has a perfectly chiseled chin, and is handsome like a model. The other man started giving me attention, and slowly I gave in. I decided that Mr. Mom at home was not enough for me. I convinced myself that my husband was not giving me enough attention. After 2 months of courting, the other man took me to a hotel room after work and we slept together. It was the worst experience of my life. It was all exciting until we started having sex, and it all felt wrong. There was an immense amount of guilt and shame that took control of me. I realized it was not what I wanted and that I was making a huge mistake. I went home. At home, my husband was entertaining the kids. They were in front of the TV and my husband was doing theatrics for the kids, pretending to have an imaginary sword fight with an enemy, and the kids were all laughter and giggles. He was telling them a story or something. I stood there and watched them for a few minutes, then went and took a shower, and no amount of water could wash away the shame I felt. So I started doing what I could to repent. I had no intention of confessing to my husband, but decided I would become the best version of myself for him. So we started having sex every day. If not possible, I made sure he would at least get a BJ. I started cooking more at home and having date nights again because my parents were more than happy to babysit at the end of a simple phone call. I can say that our relationship was better than ever. 6 weeks later, the other man approached me at work and told me he wanted to repeat our session. I told him no, that it was a mistake and to leave me alone. He insisted and I told him I love my husband and that the other man is not half the man my husband is. Later that day, I went back home, kissed my husband hello, had small talk with him, and took a shower before we went out for a movie. I came out of the shower and I could just tell something was wrong. My husband was looking at his phone and he was sobbing. I asked him what was wrong and he handed me his phone. The other man had sent him a few messages detailing how we spent time together, how we planned it, screenshots of messages, the hotel receipt, some pictures, etc. My husband asked me if it was true and I was truthful about everything. He asked me if I had ever intended to confess and I told him I would have taken this to the grave with me. I tried to explain it was all a mistake, that I regret it more than anything, that I will do anything to repent, and pleaded with him not to leave. Well, he left for 2 days, did not answer my calls, and did not answer my texts. I tried to get a hold of him at his work, but was told he took a few days off. Then he came home, spent some time with the kids, and started packing a bag for himself. He told me we were done. That if I think I can do anything I want and suffer no consequences, he can do whatever he wants and damn the consequences. He then told me how much he sacrificed for us, our relationship, and our marriage. He never finished school because our son came along and we needed money more than he needed to finish school. He abandoned friends because I was not comfortable with them. He put me ahead of his own needs and desires. He spends more time with the kids than I do, and while he loves the kids to death, he never has time for himself. I, however, go out with friends after work, and with all this, with everything he does for me, I have the gall to cheat on him. He loved me unconditionally through all my faults and issues, and I entertained an affair. He doesn't see how he can spend his life with someone who has no respect for him. He should have known that all the attention I've given him lately was just guilt and not genuine, that it is time he concentrates on himself for once. And he moved out. We have individual finances. He earns almost 3 times my pay. We have a joint account where we both deposit money for bills, groceries, etc. We have another account where we deposit for the kids, and another account where we deposit for emergencies, savings, etc. He received his salary last week and promptly deposited his usual amounts into our joint accounts. So that was a relief. It lets me think he is not completely checked out of this mess I created. We are supposed to meet tomorrow and discuss where we are and what the future will be. I want to absolutely make it clear to him I have made a horrible mistake, and I will do anything he wants of me. I will take more responsibilities around the house, cut down on my time with friends, and focus more on the kids. I want him to go back and finish school if he wants that. I am so desperate, I am willing to allow him to go and sleep with other women if that's what he wants. I just am not sure how to talk with him without sounding manipulative. He never mentioned a divorce through all this and hasn't told anyone as far as I know. I have told my mother asking for advice, and she was very disappointed in me. I asked her not to tell anyone else, and to my knowledge, she has not. Him not bringing divorce into the mix gives me some hope, but I am scared of what tomorrow will mean and what he might tell me. Maybe tomorrow he asks me for a divorce. I just need some advice. My affair was a wake-up call. I don't want to lose the best thing in my life. Any advice will be appreciated. Thank you. Yeah, typically an affair is a mistake worth ending a relationship. You fucked up. You got a husband that is loving, works hard, and your own parents love him. But for whatever reason, that wasn't enough and you went out and cheated. Based on what was shared here, I would not even bat an eye at leaving OP. This was completely out of lust. She wasn't happy enough with her own life that was going so well, and she even said it herself. If you feel that your partner isn't giving you enough attention, you tell them that. You don't go and fuck someone else over it. I don't believe in get out of jail free cards, which is basically what OP is asking for. But at the end of the day, it's up to OP's husband with what he wants to do. User Jeff Smisek said, you want to fix things after you've already cheated? If you were so unsatisfied, why not try and fix things before you destroy someone's life? You don't really deserve a second chance, and if he decides to continue the relationship, I guarantee it will always be at the back of his mind. Yes, people make mistakes, but yours was not a mistake. You spent 2 months building an emotional relationship with this man before you decided to get physical. You're actually terrible, and I hope you learn your lesson and treat those you love better in the future. User Braves1029 said, my wife and I were together for 13 years and married for 4. We have a 4-year-old son together. I'm in the same boat as your husband, meaning I spent way more time with our son than she did. She went out with friends while I was more than happy taking care of our son. She did the exact same thing to me, met a coworker, had an affair multiple times, and lied about where she was. I couldn't forgive her and didn't want to forgive her. I filed for divorce and demanded majority custody. The state I live in rarely grants full custody. Knowing our son spent the majority of the time with me anyway, she complied. So in November of this past year, I went from husband and family man to a part-time dad and sometimes single man. It's been a tough transition at times, but it was the best thing I ever did. She knowingly and willingly destroyed a 13-year relationship for selfish reasons. I'm sure your husband has had multiple opportunities to have an affair, but out of love and respect for you and himself, he refrained. Maybe in your next relationship, you can learn from this. A deleted user said, whoa, you really messed up. Give him time to think. That's the only thing you can do in my opinion. Whatever he wishes to do after having thought properly about it is his choice. If he wants to have another go at it, be the best version of yourself you can be, but the trust will never be the same. He may only stay for the kids. If he leaves, that's understandable. It seems like he's a great catch and you messed it all up, so yeah. If he decides to divorce and such, respect his wishes. User Tay Oz said, there's no coming back from this for your husband. How can he stay married to you and function? You're just gonna have to step back and let the situation play itself out. He's going to have to forgive you to be able to recover from this, so I guess regretting having cheated on him is one step. Just have to wait and hope for the best. User Optigital said, I know that you are feeling much guilt and grief. I'm not trying to add to that, but a mistake is something not thought about and not planned. You had plenty of time to get out of this, but you jumped in with both feet, so don't call this a mistake. That said, the decision to divorce is up to your husband. If he doesn't want to divorce, then you can worry about fixing this mess. I ask you one thing, would you forgive your husband if he had done this? How would he another woman feel to you? Again, would you forgive him? Under this comment, OP said, "Since he moved out, I have struggled with this question myself, and I will be honest, it is a mixed bag of feelings. Because I'm in this situation, my immediate reaction is to say, yes, I would. But in my sleepless nights, the more I think about this, the more I lean towards no. If I were in his shoes, I would not stick around. This is a very scary thought, and I am not in a good place because of it. And I do feel like a hypocrite calling it a mistake, but I don't want to give it more power than it already has. It's like a bad mantra. I will try not to use the word mistake around my husband for what it will be worth. Thank you." In OP's first update, she said, "I guess I will find out what happens sooner than I thought. He asked me to take the kids to my parents for the rest of the day and meet him in a few hours. The good thing is he wants to meet at a place where we used to go when we were younger. The bad thing is all the preparations I was putting together, writing the letter as some posters have recommended, will have to be put aside." The next update, OP said, "He is giving me another chance. He moved back home last night. I had the most difficult talk with my husband last night and had to answer a few very hard questions. For those interested and those who messaged me and asked for an update, please allow me a few days. I have shared this post with my husband and he read through it all. Any update I will post has his consent. Thank you to those who provided valuable advice." Then in the final update, OP said the following: "I apologize for the length of this post. I would like to thank those of you who helped me with valuable content. My husband is aware of everything I will be writing below. As I mentioned last time, my husband called me and asked me to leave the kids with my parents. Then he asked me to meet him a few hours later. We were to meet at a nice little restaurant we used to frequent when we were younger, where he took me on our first date. Initially, I thought of it as a positive sign that he wanted to meet me somewhere familiar, where we have history. But as the hours went by, I was sure this was just poetic justice, that the place where we had our first date would be the place where he ends it all. Like a cycle, it ends where it started. I suppose the mind can mess with you like that, turning a positive into a negative in a snap. Even though I've seen him almost daily for the past 6 weeks, he was avoiding me, and I never had a proper look at him. He lost weight, got a new haircut, and was dressed very nicely, like it was for an occasion. Dumping my sorry ass and getting along with his life would have been it, I suppose. I wanted to hug him, but he cut me short. I will never forget the words he spoke to me. "Have a seat, let me speak. I want my wife back. Something happened to her, and I don't know where she is. You know my wife better than I do. So I want to ask you if you have any idea what has happened to her. Can you tell me why she found it so easy to betray both myself and our children?" I started crying, and he told me he didn't invite me there to make me cry. He told me he had a few things to tell me and that they would be painful to hear, and to let him know if I am strong enough to listen to him or if I want some space first. I nodded no, and he started. He told me that the first 2 weeks after he found out, he wanted nothing but to hurt me. He loathed having to come and pick up the kids for practice because I would be there. He wanted to go to my work and let everyone know I am a whore. He wanted to call my parents and siblings and let them know. To tell his parents and brother, to tell everyone we know. He wanted to divorce me, taking the kids away from me. His mind was all over the place, but all these feelings were forced. He was hurt. He still is hurt. But he had plenty of time to think. He knows what he wants to do, but before he tells me, he wants me to answer a question. Why? And I answered as sincerely as I could. Because I could. I didn't need to. I didn't have to, but I could. He nodded, then asked me if I regret it. I said I do. He said he believes me. He then asked me if I am sorry for being exposed. I told him no. My actions have consequences and I will live with them. But I hope that whatever shape those consequences take, losing him will not be it. He nodded. He asked me if I ever thought about the kids and how their lives might change because of my actions. Some people recommended I be brutally honest when answering his questions, people who went through my situation. So I told my husband that when I was in bed with the other man, I immediately felt guilt, and the kids were my first thought, and what a big mistake I was making. But before it was all about myself. No kids, no husband, no family, just myself. He asked me if we used a condom, and I told him we did, but the other man never finished because my guilt was too much, and I left a few minutes after we started. He nodded, but he was swallowing hard, and it was clear he had a hard time asking me about this. He asked me if I would have it within me to forgive him if the roles were reversed. And I told him that I struggled with this same question, and while being in this situation, I want to immediately say, yes, of course I would forgive you. The truth is, I don't think I could forgive him. He nodded again. I told him I realize how selfish I am to ask him to come back, but I am willing to fight for him and do anything he asks of me. He asked me if I wanted him back at home. I said yes. Then he asked me if I understood what I was asking him to do. I was asking him to come back home, swallow his pride. No, kill his pride. Kill any traces of ego he might still have. He asked me if I could imagine what this whole situation was doing to his self-worth and esteem. It was painful to listen to him. I felt sick with myself, and to be honest, I felt like we were not husband and wife anymore. I felt this meeting was more for closure than anything, and I started to get used to the idea. Many people in the previous thread said as much, that he would not want anything to do with me, and this was more of a "this is how we split" meeting. The fact that he next told me he spoke with a lawyer cemented this idea. He told me he had a few appointments with a lawyer. Papers were made. Silence. None of us spoke for a few minutes. My mind started going to the kids, trying to figure out how to plead with my husband not to go for full custody, how to explain my actions to my parents and his parents, and so on. He then told me that the kids should remain with my parents until they start school, or maybe longer after that. My parents live close to their school, so it would be easy for the kids. I asked him why, and he said if we are to work on ourselves, we need some time alone, that we should both take a few days off and leave the city. I asked him if this meant he would move back in. He said yes. I asked him if this meant he was giving me a second chance. He said yes, but he told me this was the hardest thing he has ever had to do, that a week ago he was ready to serve me with divorce papers. He told me he doesn't hate me. He had time to think, to calm down, and to think some more. I betrayed his trust. He told me it would have been better if I had told him in the morning, I'm going to some other man and I'll be back home for dinner. At least that wouldn't have been behind his back. He is not sure how he can trust me again, but he will try. So I enumerated some things from the previous thread: open phone policy and GPS tracking. He looked at me and told me he is not the police or a detective, that there is no way for him to rebuild his trust in me if he has to always check up on me. So I asked him if he wanted me to leave my job. He told me that would be a mistake. We don't need the money my salary brings in, but it is not for him to demand me to leave my job. He knows I love my work, and that would be selfish of him. He also told me, besides, the other man will no longer be an issue. I asked him what that meant, but he said nothing and changed the subject. I asked him to go to marriage counseling. He doesn't want to. He told me whatever issues he will have to work through, he will do so himself, and doesn't need someone else to tell him what to do. However, if I want to go to individual counseling, he is fine with that. He just doesn't see it working for himself. So we will start clean. He will not hold it over me, but that doesn't mean it is forgotten. We have a lot of rebuilding ahead, and while there will be no "at least I haven't fucked another woman" in our future talks, he will not be shy about the matter. He doesn't want us to tell anyone. For me, not for himself. If we start telling people, they might alienate me from their social groups, and he doesn't want the mother of his children to suffer. By proxy, the children will suffer. If I am shunned by the other mothers and friends, the kids will miss out on play dates and other group activities, and he doesn't want that. He made it clear he is not keeping this a secret for my benefit, but he hopes I understand I should suffer. At the least, I should be ashamed, which I am. We chatted some more, but the above were the most important points. Later that night, he was home. He settled in the guest room. We talked some more. It felt weird without the kids around, but he was there and it was nice. We sat on the couch and I told him I wanted to tell our parents about the affair. He said he didn't think it was a good idea. While my parents may be more lenient because I am their daughter, his parents will have no reason to handle the situation with gloves. But I insisted, and I told him that my actions should have some consequences, and that so far it feels like he is allowing me to get away scot-free. So he agreed we could tell our parents. What happened next is a little embarrassing to write about. He asked me if I really feel like I should be punished for my actions. I told him that yes, there should be some punishment. He said, "All right then," and then he asked me to take off my pants. Then he asked me to bend over his knees, and he spanked my ass red. It was the most submissive I have ever been to anyone in my adult life. When he felt it was enough, he dropped my panties and f***ed me from behind, holding my hands behind my back. It was the most intense experience the two of us had, and the most satisfying for me. I surrendered completely to him, and it was the best experience of my life. He then carried me in his arms to my bed because I was exhausted and I would not have made it there myself. He slept in the guest room. We both went to work the next day, Monday. When we got back home, we left to visit the kids and spend time with them. When we came back home, we talked and talked and talked. I half expected him to spank me again, but nothing happened. We decided once a week we will have a status checkup, discussing what we liked or hated about each other the previous week. I decided I will go to individual therapy. He decided he wants a room for himself, a man cave. Wednesday, we had both our parents together and I came clean to them. My father took it the hardest and he was very upset when he figured out my mom already knew. My husband's parents were not pleased, to say the least, but they said they trust my husband's judgment. My husband was adamant they not speak a word of this to anyone. He told them we wanted them to know because we respect them, but that nobody else should find out, and this is his decision. My husband's parents dropped a bomb on us too. They reconciled as well. My mother-in-law had several affairs and they worked through it. This was before my husband was born, but after his brother was born. My husband joked and asked if he is a baby will fix this child. We both took a week off from work next week. We'll leave for a cabin in the mountains where we can have peace and quiet and can hike and be just the two of us. We haven't had a fight yet, and it's weird because I've read fights will be frequent after an affair, even during reconciliation. He hasn't asked me anything more about the affair aside from the details from our date last Sunday. We have some books we will take with us to read about affairs and rebuilding after them. That is all I have to say about it. I apologize for the length, but I felt the need to talk with someone before I start my therapy once we return. Thank you to those who gave me advice. TLDR, he's taking me back. Second and only chance. Don't be stupid, you will lose. I won't say if taking OP back was the right or wrong decision, mainly because I don't think it's as black and white as that. She's a piece of shit and I think we can all agree to that, but I do think that taking her back is a bad decision. Not necessarily wrong, but bad. Anyway, the ending part was fucking ridiculous, and honestly I was kind of believing the story up to that point, but when bro told OP to bend over, I couldn't help but burst out laughing. Anyway, let me know what you guys think in the comments, I guess. User Kool-Aid Man 7980 said, "Your poor husband. He was raised by a cheater and scumbag only to turn around and marry the very same person. It's funny how what we experience as children is the very thing we seek out when we are grown. Your husband will wake up one day." User Wild Deep Max Sound said, "Well, I'd like to think this is fake, but I did a lot of this shit when I discovered my ex was nothing but a lie. My advice, watch him. Right about this time, I decided it was easier to kill myself." User Rippin' Peps said, "Not going to sit here and attack you, but I did want to point out that you probably shouldn't have said, 'because I could.' That is a shit reason and probably made him hurt twice as bad as before." User Macman Fan said, "Most likely you will fail. Most cheaters do. Every time you look at him, just remember he has no pride, self-esteem, or masculinity left. He did that for you and his children. If you waste it, you will be a truly horrible wretch. If you think you deserve all of that, then you are beyond help. If you were truly sorry, you would have left him so he could have a quality life." User Second Entity said, "You're a complete scumbag. I hope your husband realizes that he shouldn't give you another chance and divorces you. I do hope your kids will make it through this with no issues though. The fact that multiple parties are willing to give you a second chance is disgusting to me. I hope your husband realizes this before he accidentally creates a toxic living situation for your kids." User DNN Corny 8 said, "People make mistakes. Hopefully you learned from it, but only time will tell. I think it's beautiful that for the sake of your children and love, you two are going to put this much work into trying to fix things. I also think it's beautiful you both decided to tell your parents. You have more balls than me. I wish you both the best and hope you two can figure things out." Under this comment, OP said the following, "Yes, it was not easy telling the parents. My father felt sick. He hasn't spoken to me since Wednesday, and my mom says to give him time. I am daddy's girl. His parents went through something similar, so they were not shaken to the core, but it was very embarrassing to face them. I would also point out that my actions were not a mistake, and this is something I need to clarify. It is easy to call it a whoops, didn't mean to, but you look back at it and it sucks. As others have pointed out, I was not forced to go to the hotel. I was not forced to entertain his advances for 2 months. I could have come clean immediately to my husband and faced the music. Thanks for the kind wishes." User MFN Human said, "This gives me anxiety. I have been with my wife for 13 years, married for 10. I would not be able to have sex with her after she cheated. I hope that before it came to that, she would talk to me about a threesome or something first. I could be into that, but this is a nightmare." To this, OP said, "I don't know how to answer this. I would be broken if my husband rejected me, but I would understand why. Make no mistake, things have changed between us. The power dynamic in our relationship is now definitely in his favor, whereas it used to be a 50-50 balance not so long ago. I'm not sure if you have read my original post, but he definitely rejected me. He left home and there was a period of uncertainty for me not knowing what would happen. He has since told me the thoughts he had during that time, ranging from a desire for revenge to a desire to hurt me back to a lot of pain, which led back to wanting revenge. It was hard to listen to him. Overall, his desire to not have a broken family won. I am fully aware that he took me back because of the kids. He confessed that if it were not for the fact that the kids are still young, he would have definitely not taken me back. It was painful to hear that, but I can't blame him. One thing I know is that he will not leave me, even when the kids are older. He told me that if he is back, he is back. But if I ever give him reason to doubt me, we are done. And you know what? I am fine with that. I tasted the poisoned fruits, so to speak, and I never want another bite. I don't know what to tell you about your anxiety related to your wife. I can tell you my husband would have never found out about my affair had it not been for the revenge texts. Had my affair partner been silent, this would have gone to the grave with me. I told as much to my husband, but I am also relieved that he found out. It was a serious burden. I can also tell you that the way he is coping with my affair is unlike anything I was expecting. I have read books, I have read other people's stories here on Reddit, I have seen how others handle the situation and what therapists say. He is not showing any signs of that. He asked me very few questions about everything. He has never had a violent outburst or even an angry one, and he doesn't have problems sleeping. We had a fight last week about our oldest and a school issue, and he never tried to gain the upper hand by using my affair against me, like I read it would happen. He is more dominant in bed, but I am really comfortable with that. Our sex life is doing great at least 3 times a week. I don't know, I am very lucky, I guess. I have friends that cheated, both men and women, and their relationships ended or didn't work out. Some had kids, others didn't. I am in a unique situation. I am sorry, I am not even sure I addressed your reply. I guess I just felt the need to write a little. You shouldn't judge your wife by my actions. The majority of women will never cheat, even if there was no way for them to get caught. I am a unique type of scumbag. I cheated even though there was no motivation behind it, no excuse or reason. It just happened.